Makoto is NPC and loser, who is beating his joystick just like some of you, but one day God gave him a hot girlfriend with big melons. But after clapping her, he has started to clap all school bitches and he has created his own fantasy world. Everything kicks off on Makoto's first day at his new school, thinking a new launch pad for his rocket.
What do you mean by that?
Suddenly he spots Kotonoha for the first time and gets totally hooked on her vibe, and his rocket is ready for the launch. As time passes, he figures out she's in the class beside his and rides the same train. One day, without thinking much, he secretly snaps her picture. The following day at school, Makoto starts feeling like a total stalker and decides it's best to delete Kotonoha's photo. Just as he's about to do it, he gets caught in the act by his classmate, Sekai. Freaking out, he begs her not to spill the beans about his crush on Kotonoha. Later, Sekai pulls him up to the rooftop and shows him a picture without clothes. Sorry guys, I mean she shows Hima a picture she took with Kotonoha, leaving him shocked. As he tries to grab her phone, she casually reveals that she met Kotonoha during gym class and found out she doesn't really vibe with her classmates. Upset and lonely, Makoto grabs Sekai by the collar and accuses her of wanting to spread nasty gossip. Surprised by his sudden aggression, Sekai tells him he's being rough, and he quickly backs off. She then calmly says she hasn't told anyone and just wants to help him to clap Kotonoha.
Yeah, boy.
The next day, Sekai lets Makoto know she's invited Kotonoha to join them for lunch after class. She tries to pull him up to the rooftop, but he hesitates, saying he's not mentally ready to face Kotonoha yet. Ignoring his protests, Sekai basically drags him up there anyway. To his surprise, Kotonoha's already waiting and even brought a homemade lunch for the two of them. Sekai and Makoto each grab a sandwich, and right after the first bite, they both regretted the taste is horrible. Still, not wanting to offend Kotonoha, Makoto forces himself to eat every last bite. When Sekai leaves to give them a little privacy, Kotonoha suddenly calls him weird. Makoto tries to laugh it off, explaining that he's usually pretty normal, it's just that he's sitting next to someone who looks like an absolute goddess. That breaks the ice, and their chat goes super smoothly. Later that day, Makoto calls Sekai to thank her, and says he's finally going to confess to Kotonoha tomorrow, even though he's not sure she feels the same. Sekai wishes him luck and ends the call. Now, he spends his night in thinking of which position is best. Tell me in the comment guys, which is your favorite position?
We must stay focused, brothers. We must stay focused.
The next day, Makoto goes ahead with his plan and confesses to Kotonoha. Later on, during P, Sekai talks to Kotonoha, who casually mentions that Makoto had confessed, and she said yes. Hearing this, Sekai says she's honestly happy that they both like each other, and Kotonoha even thanks her for being supportive. After school, Sekai spots Makoto hanging around the station, clearly waiting for Kotonoha. Out of nowhere, he asks her why she helped him so much. Sekai shrugs and says she just thought his situation was amusing and decided to get involved for fun. Makoto doesn't fully get her reasoning but says he owes her one anyway. Sekai smiles, takes a chance, and kisses him for a second before dashing off to catch her train. Once she's alone, she finally lets her emotions out and cries quietly. That weekend, Makoto is reading some shady online advice about how to unlock your girlfriend's top on the first date. Before he can finish, Kotonoha shows up and their outing begins. Makoto goes all out to impress her, smashing arcade games, ordering every dessert in sight, and acting like a top G when a creepy old man bothers her. But at the end of the night, when he leans in for a kiss, Kotonoha just stares at him like he's a complete loser. Thankfully, the train-kun shows up and drags him away before things get worse. Guys, I think gods also do not want to sow his. The next day, when Sekai finds out what happened between Makoto and Kotonoha, she snaps at him for being clueless and inconsiderate. Makoto tries to defend himself with some lame excuse, but when that fails, he nervously brings up the time Sekai kissed him, comparing her blush to a useless. Rolling her eyes, Sekai says she was just trying to be classy like the French and insists they're nothing more than buddies. Makoto is confused and reminds her that they're in Japan, but Sekai ignores the comment and hands him a pair of movie tickets. Trying to hype him up, she paints a dreamy scenario where everything goes smoothly and he might even get a kiss from Kotonoha in the dark theater. With that, she walks away and meets her friend Setsuna, who jokingly asks if she managed to invite Makoto out. Sekai pauses, chuckles, and tells her not to be ridiculous. That night, Makoto dives back into his sketchy dating guide and realizes he needs to clean up, trim his jungle-like hair, clip his claws, and make sure he smells like a fresh breeze for the big day. When the date finally arrives, the two stand outside the movie theater. Kotonoha instantly lights up at the idea of watching a zombie flick, but Makoto drags her into a romantic drama instead. Though it's not her thing, Kotonoha pretends to enjoy it. As a kissing scene plays on screen, Makoto remembers Sekai once calling Kotonoha a cold-hearted weirdo. That weird insult somehow pumps him up to try and kiss her right then and there. But when Makoto leans in to kiss her, Kotonoha smacks him hard across the face. At the end of the movie, ironically, the main character's best friend ends up stealing her partner, not a great sign. Later, they both head to a CAF, where Makoto apologizes for making her feel weird. He admits that Sekai was the one who pushed him to go for the kiss. That's when Kotonoha points out that his bond with Sekai seems a little too close. While riding the train, Kotonoha quietly apologizes to him for not meeting his expectations and suddenly rushes away. The following day, Sekai finds out what happened and immediately calls Makoto a fool. They argue as Sekai tells him he's rushing everything and that Kotonoha probably values things more seriously. Makoto admits he was just following advice from some cheesy romance guide, which makes Sekai call him an idiot all over again. After the chaos in class, she cools off and tells him to just make things right with his girlfriend. Once classes end, Makoto tries to visit Kotonoha but runs into Kato, an old friend. She assumes he's there for her, but Makoto shoots that down, saying he's only there to see Kotonoha. Before he can talk to her, the bell rings and he's sent back to his class. After school ends, Makoto rushes to catch Kotonoha and tells her he wants to fix things and get to know her better. She says she's busy, but he insists he'll wait at the train station. She runs off without saying a word. Meanwhile, Sekai overhears the whole conversation as she's leaving a student council meeting. Later, on her way home, Sekai catches up with Kotonoha and asks why she's avoiding the train station. Kotonoha lies, but Sekai calls her out, saying she knows Makoto is still there waiting. She tells Kotonoha to be honest and let Makoto go if she's lost feelings, or else he'll just keep chasing her cluelessly. That triggers Kotonoha, who warns Sekai not to call her boyfriend an idiot. Sekai grins and says they're both hopeless romantics. They end up talking in the park, where Kotonoha reveals she's scared of boys because she was bullied for her looks. Sekai reassures her that Makoto is different, and says she should be willing to get close to him since he's her guy now. Later that night, Kotonoha shows up at the station and finds Makoto still waiting just like he said. Seeing her, he nervously apologizes for acting like a clingy weirdo, but before he can finish, Kotonoha stops him and says she wants to understand him better too. Then, out of nowhere, she kisses him, surprising them both. After going home, Makoto decides to call her, but it's her little sister, Kokoro, who picks up. Super hyped, she blurts out asking if he's the guy who's about to clap her sister. Without waiting for a response, she proudly says Kotonoha is already prepping herself for him. Moments later, Kotonoha snatches the phone away while Kokoro keeps yelling that she wants to talk to her future brother-in-law. Kotonoha shoves her out and then quietly stares at a photo of her and Makoto before calling him back. The next day on the rooftop, Makoto and Kotonoha have lunch together, while Sekai sits awkwardly by herself, clearly feeling left out. Kotonoha tells Makoto that Kokoro now wants to meet him. Makoto lights up and asks if that means she's inviting him over. Sekai scoffs and tells him not to get ahead of himself, but Makoto pushes the question again, and Kotonoha shyly agrees. Sekai scolds Kotonoha, saying she's spoiling him too much. He already acts like a kid who eats crayons. She warns that if something bothers her, she should speak up instead of holding it in. Makoto begs Sekai not to ruin things, which earns him a proper smackdown from her. Meanwhile, Kotonoha silently watches them with a gloomy expression. After lunch, Kotonoha is stopped by Koto and her cheerleader gang. Koto scolds her for disappearing during breaks since she had to handle the class announcements alone. One of her friends teasingly asks Kotonoha if she was with her boyfriend. Kotonoha tries to deny it, but the girls quickly catch on. While they're all dying to know who the mystery guy is, Koto snaps and tells her to stop daydreaming and focus on her student council duties. After classes wrap up, Kotonoha and Makoto meet up and hop on the train together. As they sit, some random background dude throws judgmental looks their way. Makoto picks up on Kotonoha's downcast expression and gently asks if something's bothering her, but she stays silent. As her stop nears, Makoto tells her that she can talk to him about anything. After all, they're a couple now, right? That's when Kotonoha softly asks him if they really are lovers. When he says yes, she suddenly hugs him, wanting to feel his warmth for just a moment. As soon as the train halts, she dashes off, leaving Makoto confused and a little shaken. Meanwhile, the nosy train-riding NPC immediately reports the scene to Sekai, claiming her boyfriend is all over another girl. Annoyed, Sekai tells her Makoto isn't her boyfriend and instantly calls him. She scolds him for getting touchy with Kotonoha in public, but Makoto brushes it off, saying they're a couple, so it's no big deal. Sekai sighs and tells him that girls here tend to be shy and reserved, so he should chill with the PDA. Makoto complains that all this proper behavior is way too complicated for someone who just wants to vibe. That only earns him more of Sekai's scolding. The next morning, Makoto is pumped and waiting on the train, ready to ask Kotonoha what's been bugging her. But his plan flops when she switches it up and takes the bus instead. At school, Makoto sulks, and Sekai notices his mood. During break, he asks her to come along and help him apologize to Kotonoha. But Sekai reminds him that he needs to grow a spine and say sorry on his own. Just then, Setsuna shows up and asks Sekai to hang out with the other girls. Sighing, Makoto heads to the rooftop, hoping to find Kotonoha, but it's completely empty. Meanwhile, Kotonoha grabs her lunch and rushes out of class, which annoys Kotu, who doesn't like people breaking routine. Kotonoha soon reaches the rooftop and says sorry to Makoto for being late. Elsewhere, Sekai's friends warn her not to get involved with someone like Makoto, but she keeps telling them they're not even a thing. Back on the rooftop, Kotonoha surprises Makoto by inviting him to her place on Sunday. Excited, he grabs her hand and asks her to explain the address properly. Later that day, Setsuna visits Sekai at her part-time job. After work, they walk home together, and Setsuna finally asks if she's dating Makoto. Sekai admits that there's nothing romantic between them at all. Sunday rolls around and Makoto puts on his best soft boy fit, looking like someone straight off a Pinterest board. On the train, his mind drifts to Sekai thinking about how she'll be alone while he gets to hang out with Kotonoha. When he arrives, he's greeted by Kokoro, who instantly hugs him. Watching this, Kotonoha quietly wishes she were an only child, but she goes along with it, and they all enjoy their time together. During lunch, Kokoro straight up asks why they're still calling each other by last names when they've already locked lips. The question leaves both Makoto and Kotonoha speechless. Later, when the day winds down, Makoto casually brings it up and asks if it really matters. Kotonoha admits it does and apologizes for sounding too serious. Without missing a beat, Makoto calls her by her first name, and that instantly lifts her mood. They laugh it off together, feeling a little more connected. As they reach the train station, Kotonoha asks him to shut his eyes just before the train pulls in. She leans in and kisses him softly on the cheek, leaving Makoto completely stunned as the train rolls up behind him. After getting home, Makoto calls Sekai and admits that being with Kotonoha is kind of exhausting. Meanwhile, in her room, Kotonoha is quietly reading a book when Kokoro suddenly bursts in and bluntly asks if she's kissed Makoto yet. The question clearly upsets her, but she doesn't answer. Back on the rooftop, Makoto sighs and tells Sekai he thought dating would be all fun and games, but it's actually pretty stressful. Sekai doesn't hold back and tells him to stop living in a fantasy world filled with steamy videos and start facing reality. Makoto insists he's not being unrealistic, which makes Sekai ask what exactly he's trying to say. Later, Sekai meets up with her girl squad. During the chat, one of her friends, Nami, proudly says she's already gone third base with her boyfriend. That instantly triggers memories of Sekai's kiss with Makoto. Setsuna notices her expression shift and asks if something's bothering her. Sekai just smiles and says everything's fine. Elsewhere, Makoto is once again with Kotonoha on the rooftop. He tries to kiss her and finding his rocket launch pad, but Kotonoha pulls away, clearly uncomfortable. When he asks what's wrong, she says things are moving too fast and she's not ready for that kind of closeness. Makoto reminds her that she promised to put in more effort, but she still gently says it's too soon. He lets out a half-hearted apology for pushing her, and she quietly says sorry as well before running off. That night, Kotonoha gets in the bath, lost in thought. She grabs her chest, thinking about how Makoto treats her body like a stress toy, but she realizes she didn't like how that made her feel. Afterward, she calls Sekai to talk about what happened. Sekai promises to speak to Makoto and ask him to back off, but Kotonoha clarifies she doesn't exactly hate it, it's just that she's not ready yet. Hearing the confusion in her voice, Sekai reassures her that she's not a bad girlfriend just because she needs more time. Still, Sekai asks if Kotonoha plans to hold off on all physical affection forever. Trying to explain, Kotonoha says that if the vibe was perfect like hearing careless whisper in the background, maybe she'd feel different. After a pause, she adds that it might work if they were riding a horse together. Stunned, Sekai asks if she even knows how to ride, and Kotonoha proudly says she's in the school's horse riding club. She confesses that watching guys ride horses turns her on like crazy. Sekai just stares, realizing she's talking to a full-on horse girl, as Kotonoha happily rambles on about how she might even be okay with Makoto getting touchy if he took her to some fancy countryside cottage. Meanwhile, Makoto is back at home wasting tissue after tissue, replaying that 2-second chest moment with Kotonoha like it's a scene from his personal highlight reel. The next morning on the train, Kotonoha happily greets him and is just about to invite him somewhere fancy when the train suddenly jolts. Makoto loses balance and accidentally grabs her chest. Embarrassed, Kotonoha pulls away immediately, looking startled. Seeing her reaction, Makoto's mood crashes. He tells her he gets it now, she doesn't want to be touched. Noticing how gloomy he gets, Kotonoha quietly puts away the tickets she planned to give him. Meanwhile, Hikari, a student from another class, witnesses the awkward moment and rushes to Sekai to gossip. She tells her Makoto looked like a creep, forcing a shy girl from another section to act like she's in some adult drama. Sekai just smiles and calmly says Makoto isn't that kind of guy. Later in class, Sekai casually asks if Makoto is planning to have lunch with Kotonoha, but he shrugs and says he's just eating in the cafeteria. Noticing something's off, she gently asks if things are going okay between them. When Makoto stays quiet, Sekai teases that it seems like he did something shady that made Kotonoha hate him. Frustrated, Makoto suddenly yells at her in front of the whole class. Sekai quickly drags him outside to avoid more attention and tells him to explain what's going on. Makoto finally admits he tried to get closer to Kotonoha, but she backed off. Hearing this, Sekai tells him straight up Kotonoha isn't the kind of girl who's going to jump into physical stuff so easily. Makoto then asks if it's really wrong to want to be close to someone you love. Sekai softens and reassures him no, there's nothing wrong with that at all. While Kotonoha waits alone, wondering where Makoto is, he's actually getting a serious lecture from Sekai about how you don't just grab someone without warning. Despite her effort, Makoto still doesn't get the difference between treating a girlfriend with respect and acting like she's some random street character from a bad drama. Exhausted, Sekai sighs and offers herself as a training dummy so he can learn how to handle Kotonoha properly. Back in class, Makoto is still confused about what Sekai meant by practice, while Kotonoha quietly feels hurt by his absence. After school, Sekai pulls Makoto aside and tells him to come with her. Makoto hesitates, joking that he hasn't agreed to anything. Getting annoyed, Sekai fires back, telling him to grow up if he seriously wants to graduate from forever alone status, especially for the girl whose presence enters the room before she does. Out of nowhere, Taisuke shows up and reminds Makoto he's missing some pages from the love guide he gave him. Makoto casually says they're probably at home, and Taisuke, without hesitation, asks if he can come over to check. Sekai glares at Makoto and makes him choose help his buddy, or focus on leveling up with Kotonoha. Later, Makoto finds himself with Sekai at a quiet park. She scouts for a hidden spot, and when Makoto asks what she's doing, Sekai straight up says that if his goal is to get physical with Kotonoha, they need a private place to practice. She finally picks a spot behind the bushes. Makoto, confused, asks if this is really where Kotonoha would want anything romantic to happen. Sekai admits this isn't Kotonoha's vibe. The girl once mentioned she'd rather have her first serious moment in Europe or somewhere fancy while horseback riding. Makoto stands there, completely stunned by how over the top that sounds. Sekai brushes it off and says it's time for practice mode to begin. Just as they're about to kiss, a random group of people gather around, watching them like they're part of a weird live performance. They relocate to a quiet place, the school rooftop, where everything started. There, Sekai gets serious and tells him to treat her like a Things heat up, and Makoto blurts out that he wants her. Sekai, caught up in the moment, agrees to let him continue as Makoto take him down. She enjoys it. After his rocket is finally ended up on the launch pad, Makoto asks Sekai if they can keep doing more of it. But Sekai quickly shuts him down and tells him to focus on Kotonoha instead. Feeling defeated, Makoto slumps, so Sekai tells him to pull himself together. She walks away but lingers for a moment, quietly watching him from a distance as Kotonoha later comes by and invites him to the pool. The next day at school, Sekai notices Makoto looking drained and jokes about how he's running on low energy. He brushes it off, saying she's always too hyped anyway. She then spots the pool ticket sticking out of his pocket. Even though she knows Kotonoha gave it to him, she sarcastically asks if he got it from Hikari. Before he can explain, Hikari shows up and snatches the ticket out of his hand. Makoto misreads the moment and thinks she's into him, earning himself a proper smack from Sekai while Hikari calls him a clueless idiot. Then, with a red face, Hikari awkwardly asks Makoto if he'd be nice enough to invite Taisuke to the pool. Confused, Makoto wonders why Taisuke of all people, but Hikari stays quiet. Sekai just glares at him like he's the last brain cell left. On the weekend, Makoto ends up going to the public pool with Taisuke, who can't stop raving about girls and their plot armors. Makoto, stuck in his own thoughts, realizes he's now tangled up with both Sekai and Kotonoha and starts stressing about what to do next. In the changing room, Hikari stares in shock at Kotonoha's figure and thinks to herself that those things could end world hunger. Sekai glances at her own chest, quietly wondering when her assets will stop playing hide and seek. Thankfully, Setsuna enters just in time to hype her up. Inspired, Sekai proudly announces she's embracing her natural state, perky or not. Outside, Makoto is just thankful that Taisuke came with him. Otherwise, he'd be stuck alone with Kotonoha, and that would have been awkward. Still, he's puzzled why Hikari would want Taisuke, even his own mom barely tolerates him. Suddenly, Taisuke starts bawling, saying how happy he is to be invited because now he gets to witness Kotonoha's god-tier figure in full view. Makoto gives him the most disgusted look possible and deep down, feels nothing but sympathy for poor Hikari. Before long, the girls show up dressed in their bold swimsuits, causing Taisuke to instantly cover himself in panic. Seeing the scene unfold, Setsuna quietly checks with Hikari one last time if she's sure she wants someone like him. Nervously, Hikari says yes. Meanwhile, Makoto apologizes to Kotonoha for bringing such a big group along, but she reassures him it's fine, she likes that Sekai is here, and the others seem like fun. She gently grabs his hand, just as Taisuke's eyes nearly pop out of his head. Makoto quickly tries to play it cool and tells him it's just because he's going to teach Kotonoha how to swim. Taisuke yells that he's insanely jealous, and Sekai instantly shuts him up with a swift kick. She then whispers something into Hikari's ear, prompting her to confess to Taisuke that she also doesn't know how to swim. But Taisuke brushes it off, telling her to just learn from YouTube. Hikari loses it on him again, and Makoto sighs, already used to his friend being a lost cause. They all head into the water, where Kotonoha compliments Sekai's swimming. Makoto admits Sekai would have been a better coach, but Kotonoha disagrees, saying she wants her boyfriend to teach her. Their practice starts, and after a while, Kotonoha hugs him mid-lesson, and Makoto soaks in those precious 5 seconds like it's peak life. Later, Sekai finds Makoto by himself and asks where Kotonoha went. He tells her Kotonoha asked him to wait. Sekai, acting a bit jealous, jokes that she's probably fixing her makeup. She then mentions how things are finally going well with Kotonoha thanks to her coaching. Makoto agrees, saying that her training sessions really helped. When he tries to get handsy again, Sekai quickly stops him, reminding him that their little moment was a one-time deal. Makoto sighs and compliments her swimsuit, saying it gives off strong, high-energy vibes. Sekai doesn't take it well, pouting and sarcastically apologizing for not being Kotonoha. Makoto, confused, asks why she's even bringing her up. Sekai admits she's not sure, trying to calm her down. Makoto says she looks great, which only annoys her more. After a pause, Makoto quietly tells her that everything just feels easier when he's with her. But before he can continue, Sekai cuts him off, reminding him he's with Kotonoha, not her. Later during lunch, Kotonoha happily reveals that she made sandwiches for everyone. This time, Makoto skips them, while Taisuke devours them like it's his last meal. As Kotonoha sweetly wipes Makoto's mouth, Hikari whispers how she's such a caring girlfriend. Taisuke is shocked and blurts out, asking if Makoto isn't dating Sekai. Makoto doesn't respond, but Kotonoha confidently steps up and declares that she is dating Makoto. The entire table goes quiet. Taisuke looks heartbroken. Makoto keeps his mouth shut, and Sekai just sits there silently, while Kotonoha keeps smiling, unaware of all the tension around her. The group heads back into the pool, and Kotonoha asks Makoto to take her over to the shallow end. Nearby, Taisuke and Hikari casually chat, saying they always thought Sekai had feelings for Makoto. Sekai laughs it off, saying she only spent time with him to help him understand how girls think nothing romantic about it. As the day winds down, Kotonoha asks Makoto if he's free next Sunday because Kokoro really wants to see him again. Unlike before, Makoto gives a lukewarm response, brushing her off. Even Taisuke notices and questions him about it. When Kotonoha gently asks if something's wrong, Makoto throws out some half-hearted excuse but suddenly brightens up the moment he spots Sekai nearby. Kotonoha sees this and her mood instantly drops. Picking up on the tension, Sekai tells Makoto to come with her. They step away to a quiet corner, where she directly asks him if he's getting too caught up in their so-called training. Makoto hesitates to answer, so Sekai reminds him that he's with Kotonoha and should stay focused. But Makoto replies that his relationship with Kotonoha doesn't feel that deep to him anymore. Hearing that, Sekai's expression dims. She tells him they can't cross any more lines and should just stay friends. As they ride the bus together afterward, Makoto keeps stealing glances at Sekai, unable to get her out of his mind. Later, when Kotonoha tries to talk to him, Makoto brushes her off, saying he's tired. She puts on a supportive smile but deep down, feels the sting of being ignored by someone she trusted. Meanwhile, Makoto lies awake, replaying Sekai's smile over and over in his head. Eventually, he breaks and sends her a text, saying he doesn't want to hold back anymore. When Sekai reads the message, she urges him to stay true to Kotonoha. But instead of backing off, Makoto chases after her. Makoto suddenly pulls her into a hug and tells her, straight up, that he's fallen for her. Caught off guard, Sekai asks why he didn't come to her first. Makoto quietly apologizes. Without another word, the two share a deep kiss in the pouring rain. Meanwhile, back at home, Kotonoha sits peacefully, holding a photo of Makoto and smiling, unaware of what he's really doing as he gives his rocket to someone else. Sorry guys, I mean his heart to someone else. The following day, Makoto sneaks off to meet Sekai during her part-time shift, and the two end up secretly making out in a quiet corner. After a moment, Sekai pulls away and tells him they really shouldn't be doing this here. But Makoto, completely unbothered, casually suggests they hang out at his place, specifically his basement, for some alone time. Blushing, Sekai nervously asks if this is all still just part of their training. When Makoto says yes, she sighs and says she doesn't really have a choice, then she'll help however she can. As they go back to kissing, Makoto's phone starts buzzing. It's Kotonoha calling. When the call goes unanswered, Kotonoha tries not to overthink it, telling herself Makoto must have fallen asleep. The next morning, she quietly prepares lunch while Kokoro watches. Impressed, Kokoro compliments her cooking, saying she's definitely improved. Kotonoha smiles and says she can teach her if she wants. Hearing that, Kokoro suddenly changes the topic and says she dislikes girls with boyfriends. They always seem so perfect and untouchable. Kotonoha just chuckles and replies that maybe Kokoro should get a boyfriend too. Kokoro pouts at the suggestion, clearly not thrilled. Meanwhile, Makoto meets up with Sekai again and wastes no time pulling her in for a kiss. She kisses him back but reminds him that his poor girlfriend is probably still waiting for him at the train station. At that very moment, Kotonoha, growing tired of standing around, is just about to give up when she sees a familiar face inside the arriving train. It's Makoto. Lighting up, she steps inside and happily chats about how she learned a lemonade recipe from her mom just to win his heart. But Makoto barely reacts, clearly distracted. Eventually, her words trail off, and silence takes over. At school the next day, Makoto casually greets Sekai like he wasn't just making out with her the day before. Sekai regains her composure and responds back while Setsuna watches them both with quiet suspicion. Out of nowhere, Makoto blurts out how it's been a while since he made lunch for two. Sekai blushes and calls him an idiot for being so obvious. Once Makoto walks off, Setsuna corners Sekai and bluntly asks if something's going on between her and Makoto. Caught off guard, Sekai's reaction gives her away. Setsuna follows up by asking if Makoto and Kotonoha are still together. Sekai lies, saying they've broken up, which brings Setsuna some relief. During class, Sekai slips Makoto a note saying she wants to come clean to Kotonoha about what's been happening. Shocked, he writes back, asking why. Sekai doesn't respond. When lunch break starts, Sekai heads toward the rooftop, determined to confess. But Makoto catches up to her and asks why she's suddenly making things harder. Frustrated, Sekai shouts that what they're doing isn't practice anymore. Makoto argues that if they tell Kotonoha, she'll freak out and probably act like someone from a horror film. But Sekai ignores him and marches to the rooftop anyway. There, both of them are surprised when Kotonoha greets them with warm smiles and glasses of homemade lemonade. As they awkwardly sip the drink, Kotonoha anxiously asks if something's wrong with it. Sekai quickly says it's so good they were just left speechless. She throws a glance at Makoto, who nervously agrees. Relieved, Kotonoha smiles and says her mom taught her the recipe, so she's happy everyone liked it. In the end, Sekai can't bring herself to say a word. Later in class, Makoto gets a text from Kotonoha asking if he'd like to go shopping after school. He lies, saying his sister is visiting. Once school is out, he turns to Sekai and casually asks if he can come over for another bed session. She questions his sister's excuse, and Makoto admits he made it up. Feeling guilty, Sekai mumbles about how they keep lying to Kotonoha. To shut her up, Makoto pulls her into a hug and promises they'll come clean eventually. That same evening, Kotonoha goes yarn shopping, planning to knit Makoto a sweater. On her way back, she spots him sharing a kiss with Sekai. She freezes, stunned, but convinces herself it must have been someone else she saw. The next day, Makoto and Sekai sit quietly on the rooftop while Kotonoha rambles, clearly trying to keep the conversation alive. But when she realizes neither of them is paying attention, she trails off and stops talking altogether. Later, Makoto asks Sekai what her plans are for the day, just as he gets a message from Kotonoha asking if he can walk her home. Sekai sneaks a glance at his screen and tells him he should go with Kotonoha. She is his girlfriend, after all. Without waiting for a reply, she takes off. Kotonoha is happy to finally spend time alone with him, but Makoto seems mentally checked out. Just then, someone in a mascot outfit hands her a flyer. It's an ad for matching phones. Excited, Kotonoha shows it to Makoto and says they should get a pair. As usual, he dodges the idea. Trying to lighten the mood, she offers to buy his phone as a couple gift. Instead of showing appreciation, Makoto coldly tells her to drop it and walks ahead, leaving her behind. As she rushes to catch up, Kotonoha trips and spills her bag. Yarn rolls scatter everywhere. Makoto turns around and blandly asks if she's okay. When he notices the yarn, he casually asks if she knits. Blushing, Kotonoha admits she was planning to make him a sweater. Makoto, unsurprisingly, shows zero emotion. Meanwhile, in her room, Sekai stares at the text where Makoto confessed he likes her more than Kotonoha. At school the next day, class rep Setsuna gathers everyone to plan their event for the school festival. Taisuke, as expected, throws in some weird ideas involving creepy roleplay, all of which Setsuna immediately shoots down. In her own classroom, Kotonoha quietly struggles with her emotions after all her recent awkward encounters with Makoto. Elsewhere, Koto and her friends are chatting when they ask her who she plans to confess to during the festival. Blushing, Koto admits it's her childhood friend, a moment that sends the group into squeals of excitement. Suddenly, Koto snaps at Kotonoha for staring, demanding to know what her problem is. Nervously, Kotonoha asks them to quiet down since there's still festival work to do. Koto responds coldly, saying Kotonoha sucks. Kotonoha, as usual, apologizes excessively. She then tells Katsura to stop bothering Makoto, saying her clinginess is coming off weird. Realizing Makoto is Katsura's childhood friend, the girls start teasing her. When Kotonoha asks if she really likes him, Katsura rudely says it's none of her business. But this time, Kotonoha stands her ground. She firmly says it is her business because Makoto already confessed to her, and they're dating. Katsura is stunned and calls her a liar, but Kotonoha fires back, saying she sounds like a jealous loser. With that, she walks off, leaving Katsura fuming. Later, after her council duties, Kotonoha heads to the rooftop hoping to meet Makoto, only to overhear him and Sekai sharing a heartfelt moment. Hidden nearby, she listens as the two openly admit their feelings for each other. As the school preps for the festival, Sekai and Makoto start spending even more time together on the rooftop. Sekai asks if Kotonoha has been bothering him. Makoto says they barely speak now since she's busy with student council work. Still feeling guilty, Sekai wonders aloud if what they're doing is really okay considering he's ignoring Kotonoha completely. Makoto brushes off her concerns with a kiss. Meanwhile, Kotonoha replays that rooftop kiss in her mind, disturbed and heartbroken. She starts thinking about all the times she acted distant or stiff with Makoto, wondering if it pushed him away. Determined to do better, she decides to try harder. Just then, Kokoro walks in asking if she can come visit the school festival. When she brings up Makoto, Kotonoha falls silent, unsure how to respond to her little sister. The next day, Hikari tells Setsuna that another class is copying their idea, so they need to level up their event if they want to win. Hearing this, Setsuna becomes even more determined to lead her class to victory. But then Taisuke comes running in with news Setsuna's assistant got injured in judo practice. The class worries about how she'll handle everything alone. That's when someone mentions Kotonoha, recalling how she's always managing a ton of responsibilities by herself. Suddenly, all eyes turn to Makoto, pushing him to help out. Trying to dodge, Makoto hesitates, but Setsuna calls him out asking if he's scared to face Kotonoha during group meetings. The rest of the class, now confused, starts asking if something's going on between him and Kotonoha. Without hesitation, Setsuna blurts out that they broke up and Makoto is now with Sekai. Sekai tries to shut her up, but Setsuna just smirks and says she won't let Kotonoha get in the way anymore. Meanwhile, Kotonoha gets stuck running around for supplies after Kota's group basically bullies her into doing their work. As always, she doesn't stand up for herself and just lets them boss her around like she's invisible. That afternoon, Setsuna takes Makoto with her to a student council meeting. On the way, she jokes that if Kotonoha tries to talk to him, she'll break her knees for daring to get near her best friend's guy. Inside the room, Kotonoha's eyes light up the second she sees Makoto like a puppy spotting its owner after a long day. But Makoto doesn't even glance at her. Instead, he quietly sits next to Setsuna, leaving Kotonoha staring in silent heartbreak yet again. Elsewhere, Nami whispers to Koto that Makoto and Kotonoha are no longer together. Koto, always the opportunist, starts smiling with renewed hope. After the meeting ends, Kotonoha gently asks Makoto if he's now officially part of the committee. Just as he starts to respond, Setsuna grabs his arm and pulls him away. Kotonoha reaches out to stop him, only to be met with a sharp glare from Setsuna that says, "Don't even try." Hurt, she sends Makoto a message asking if they can eat lunch together. Setsuna sees the text and immediately asks why he still hasn't blocked his ex. Makoto tries to play it cool and says there's no need to act like their rival countries at war. But Setsuna, fed up, grabs his phone and blocks Kotonoha herself. When Makoto tells her not to go around doing things on her own, Setsuna snaps back that she's doing it for Sekai and that she won't let Kotonoha interfere anymore. Back home, Kotonoha keeps herself busy knitting the sweater she's been planning to gift Makoto. Meanwhile, Sekai finds out from Setsuna what went down, especially that Setsuna blocked Kotonoha's number from Makoto's phone. Sekai's not having it. She scolds Setsuna, but Setsuna defends herself, saying she had to step in since Makoto is now Sekai's boyfriend. The next day, Kotonoha tries texting and calling Makoto again, only to find her messages still not going through. During gym, Kotonoha sits quietly in her usual spot while Sekai watches from afar. Setsuna walks over, gives Kotonoha a sharp glare, and tells Sekai to stop worrying about her. Sekai silently agrees, and the two walk off together. At lunch, Kotonoha patiently waits for Makoto, hoping he'll show, but he never comes. As rain starts pouring, she finally returns to class, completely soaked. Her day gets worse when Katsura and her crew immediately corner her and start mocking her about the upcoming festival. Worn down and cornered, Kotonoha gives in and agrees to run errands for them. While carrying supplies, she bumps into Setsuna and Makoto. Seeing her dripping wet, Makoto's expression softens and he gently offers to help. But before Kotonoha can say yes, Setsuna interrupts and pulls him away. Annoyed, Makoto asks Setsuna why she's acting so hostile toward Kotonoha. She hesitates, then admits she's only doing it to support Sekai. But that explanation doesn't sit right with him. Frustrated, Makoto says he's going to help Kotonoha and walks away. By the time he catches up, Taisuke is already at Kotonoha's side, trying to act like her hero. Soon after, Nami and Hikari show up too, and all three of them quietly spy on the awkward moment between Taisuke and Kotonoha, who was just trying to do what she was told. Hikari watches, clearly bothered by how Taisuke is hovering around Kotonoha. Out of nowhere, Taisuke asks Kotonoha to be his dance partner at the festival. The request crushes Hikari's heart. Still rambling, Taisuke excitedly talks about how he finally has a shot with her now that Makoto's supposedly out of the picture. But Kotonoha cuts him off, raising her voice saying that she and Makoto never broke up. Then she runs off, eyes filled with tears. Before she gets far, Nami blocks her path and cruelly calls her out, accusing her of trying to get with both Makoto and Taisuke. Devastated, Kotonoha runs away while Makoto watches from a distance, frozen and silent. Later that evening, Sekai vents at Makoto's place, upset that he chased after Kotonoha like some loyal knight. But Makoto throws it back at her, saying she's always complaining about how they're unfair to Kotonoha. So what does she expect him to do? Before they can argue more, the doorbell rings. Makoto answers it and finds Kotonoha standing outside. Calmly, she says she followed him and figured out where he lives. She explains that since they never get to talk at school and her calls won't go through, she came in person. Makoto, awkward and caught off guard, tells her she can text him now, something Sekai hears from the other room. As Kotonoha steps inside, Makoto suddenly fakes a fever, clearly trying to avoid the situation. But Kotonoha spots a pair of Sekai's shoes near the door. Her expression falls. Still, she doesn't say anything about it. Instead, she quietly asks Makoto if he'll dance with her at the festival. Both Sekai and Makoto are stunned by her unexpected courage. Kotonoha goes on, explaining that Taisuke assumed they broke up and asked her to be his partner. She told him he was wrong because Makoto never said anything about a breakup, not a message, not a word. To her, they were still together. After she leaves, Sekai, clearly angry, storms out too, leaving Makoto to deal with the growing mess he's created. Waiting outside Sekai's house is none other than Kotonoha, and the second Sekai steps out, she's met with a sharp slap across the face. No words, just raw betrayal in Kotonoha's eyes. Later, Sekai sits alone in a quiet park with Setsuna. She finally admits the truth: Kotonoha and Makoto never broke up. She's still his girlfriend. Setsuna, surprised, reminds her that she literally spent the night at Makoto's place. Sekai confesses that it was her own decision and openly calls herself the biggest mess on the planet, possibly even the galaxy. Being the loyal friend she is, Setsuna doesn't judge. Instead, she reassures Sekai that she'll find out what's really going on in Makoto's heart. Sekai insists she doesn't want her to go out of her way, but Setsuna cryptically says she has no choice because time is running out. The next day, Taisuke confronts Makoto, asking straight up if he and Kotonoha broke up or not. Confused, Makoto asks where he got that idea. Taisuke says Kotonoha told him herself that they're still together. Across the room, Setsuna throws Makoto a harsh glare. Makoto shamelessly brushes it off, saying relationships are complicated. Meanwhile, Sekai sulks in her room, replaying the slap in her mind and remembering Kotonoha's tearful words asking how Sekai could betray her like that. Sekai apologized, saying it was because Makoto needed her, but Kotonoha simply told her that she truly believed Sekai was a kind person, and now realizes she was wrong. Later at school, Kotonoha gently asks Makoto if they can walk home together. He agrees, but Setsuna suddenly appears, saying he has to help with festival prep. Kotonoha says she doesn't mind waiting, but Setsuna clings to Makoto like a leash and refuses to let them be alone. Left with no choice, Kotonoha apologizes and heads home alone. Now alone with Makoto, Setsuna puts her plan into motion. She directly asks him, who does he like more, Kotonoha, the graceful and curvy beauty, or Sekai, the one who's been there emotionally? Makoto admits he first got with Kotonoha because of attraction, but with Sekai, things feel easier, more natural. Setsuna raises an eyebrow and bluntly asks if it's just because Sekai is more physically available. Makoto doesn't answer directly, he just says being with Sekai is less complicated. Hearing enough, Setsuna asks if that means he's choosing Sekai. When Makoto doesn't reply, she tells him to go to Sekai's house and settle it once and for all. Makoto hesitates at Sekai's doorstep, unsure if he should even knock. Inside, Sekai receives a text from Setsuna and immediately opens the door before he can run away. Trying to break the awkward silence, Makoto attempts small talk, but Sekai cuts straight to the point. She tells him that Kotonoha knows everything she knows about them. Her voice shakes as she asks what they're supposed to do now. Makoto, as usual, doesn't answer with words. He pulls her into another kiss, but this time, Sekai pushes him away. Makoto sighs, frustrated, as reality hits harder than before. That night, Setsuna shows up at Sekai's place and gently asks if Makoto's really planning to break things off with Kotonoha. In a quiet, heavy voice, Sekai says yes. Setsuna then asks if she truly needs Makoto that badly. Sekai admits she does, but she can't stop thinking about how Kotonoha begged her not to destroy what little she had left with him. The next day, after school, Kotonoha spots Makoto on the train and quickly takes a seat beside him, resting her head on his shoulder. When she catches him stealing glances at her chest, she leans in and whispers that he can touch them but only when Kokoro's not around. That offer works like magic. Makoto, clearly swayed, agrees to be her dance partner for the school festival the next day. As he hops off at his stop, Makoto casually calls Sekai to let her know he'll be heading over to her place later. Meanwhile, Setsuna returns home to an empty house. She sits in silence, looking down at a university brochure from France, her passport tucked inside. She sighs, thinking that now that Sekai has Makoto, everything should finally be okay. When the festival arrives, Kotonoha finds herself struggling. Her classmates are nowhere to be found, offering zero help. Meanwhile, Setsuna, ever the strategist, launches her own plan to draw in crowds. She orders all the maids to wear thigh-high socks, instantly causing a swarm of boys to flood in. The plan works a little too well. Chaos breaks out in the CAF from the overwhelming crowd, and the staff is forced to shut things down early. But Setsuna isn't the type to give up. She grabs the school's robotic mascots and makes a bold announcement that she's going to fix everything and come back stronger tomorrow. Watching from a distance, Makoto quietly observes her in action and can't help but think to himself that, if nothing else, Setsuna is definitely one of the hardest working people he knows. Later that evening, the whole group except Sekai decides to stay back and help Setsuna fix things for the festival. As Makoto pulls a wagon full of repair supplies alongside Setsuna, she suddenly drops a bombshell. Once the festival is over, she's leaving for France. Makoto, caught off guard, says it feels way too sudden. Setsuna agrees, explaining that she waited to say anything because she wanted to be sure someone would look after Sekai when she's gone. When Makoto asks why she's going to such lengths, Setsuna says it's because Sekai is emotionally fragile. She shuts down completely when she's hurt. Since Setsuna won't be there anymore, it's now his job to be the one who supports her. Makoto's mind flashes back to his first year at the academy, the day he first saw Setsuna crying after being picked on by a group of boys. Trying to cheer her up, he offered to confront them, but Setsuna had looked him straight in the eye and said she didn't need rescuing. That moment had impressed Makoto, and he told her she was strong and should consider running for class president. Oddly enough, Setsuna remembers that moment too. She thanks him, saying he gave her the confidence to believe in herself. Makoto shrugs and says he didn't really save her, but Setsuna gently insists he did by giving her hope when she needed it. The next day at school, Makoto dozes off in a quiet corner while Setsuna watches him. Noticing no one is around, she softly kisses him on the lips. But when she pulls back, she's stunned to see Kotonoha standing nearby, and she saw everything. Later, in a different part of the school, Kotonoha corners Setsuna. She bluntly asks if she kissed Makoto because she has feelings for him too and if that's the reason for all the hostility. Setsuna explains she had been looking out for Sekai this whole time, but when Kotonoha asks if kissing Makoto was also for Sekai, Setsuna stays silent. That silence says it all. Kotonoha then asks if she should tell Sekai about what she saw. Setsuna quickly begs her not to. She admits she's leaving the school soon and just wanted to make one final memory with Makoto. Kotonoha walks away without saying anything. The next morning, Setsuna, now dressed as the school's mascot, signs a peace agreement with other classes, handing over responsibilities so her friends can take it easy. Everyone notices the change in her attitude. Sekai, picking up on it too, pushes the group to work hard so Setsuna can relax a little before her farewell. Meanwhile, Setsuna sits alone watching a student play that eerily mirrors her own situation, a bittersweet love triangle. Elsewhere at the maid's CAF, Makoto is visibly bored. He groans and asks Sekai if they can just shut things down early. Pouting, Sekai says no, today's their big day, and they need to give it their all. Makoto rolls his eyes and says he'd rather break the bed with her instead. Smirking at his crudeness, Sekai says she's just happy they're baking cakes together like a real couple. That gets a blush out of Makoto. From across the room, Hikari watches and calls them an annoyingly cute couple. Taisuke, burning with jealousy, mutters about how Makoto has 2 girlfriends while he can't even get one. Speaking of Makoto's other girlfriend Kotonoha, she's stuck working the haunted house all alone. That's when Katsura and her usual minions show up, lecturing her for not working hard enough. Tired, Kotonoha mumbles a quiet apology. They go on about her job, explaining that she needs to let couples into the rest area so they can go build the next generation. Then they explain a popular new dating trend. The girl extends her hand first. If the guy accepts it, that means they're officially dating and will probably end up married. After finishing their rant, they leave Kotonoha to handle everything solo. Moments later, Taisuke shows up and says she's been working too hard lately. Kotonoha sadly admits she has to, no one else helps her. Taisuke encourages her to just speak up and ask for help. Then, out of nowhere, he asks if she'd like to dance with him at the festival. Kotonoha quickly apologizes and tells him she can't, she's still Makoto's girlfriend. Hearing that, Taisuke blurts out that Makoto's also still clapping Sekai. Angry and frustrated, Kotonoha insists again that she's the one who's with Makoto, leaving Taisuke awkwardly muttering an apology before hurrying away. Now overwhelmed with doubt, Kotonoha sends a message to Makoto, who, at that moment, is busy getting a little too close with Sekai, treating her like the last seat on a crowded public bus. Just as things escalate, Sekai suddenly snaps and knees him where it hurts, yelling at him to back off. Later, Makoto steps outside to enjoy the festival when Katsura approaches him shyly and asks if he'd like to hang out. Caught off guard, he asks what brought this on. Katsura says she just wants to spend time together, no pressure. Makoto agrees, and the two wander the festival grounds, sharing some laughs, all while his actual girlfriend grows more anxious and unstable with every passing minute. As the night goes on, Katsura gathers her courage and asks Makoto if he'll dance with her. He realizes she's starting to develop real feelings for him. His eyes scan her from head to toe, and his inner player kicks in, ready to add another girl to his collection until Sekai shows up and pulls him away before anything happens. Suddenly, Hikari runs up to Makoto, breathless, and says, "Your girlfriend's in the classroom." Both he and Sekai freeze, thinking it's Kotonoha, but it turns out to be Kokoro and her friend Yuzuki. Kokoro hugs Makoto and asks if he's going to dance with her big sister tonight. When Makoto stays silent, Yuzuki bluntly points out that he might be dating 2 girls at once. Kokoro, confused, asks what that means, but Yuzuki simply says she wouldn't understand. After all, she doesn't have a boyfriend. Meanwhile, Katsura's minions surround Kotonoha and ask if she'll be using the rest area with her boyfriend. When she doesn't answer, they taunt her about her supposed breakup. Kotonoha firmly corrects them, saying she's still in a relationship. The girls mock her again, asking if her boyfriend even came to see her once during the festival. Saddened, Kotonoha admits Makoto is just busy. They scoff, saying he's probably off with another girl right now. Trying to defend him, Kotonoha insists that Makoto wouldn't do that. But the girls coldly tell her the truth, that she's always looked heartbroken, and maybe she was never really Makoto's girlfriend in the first place. Refusing to accept it, Kotonoha raises her voice and yells that she is his girlfriend. The girls challenge her, if that's true, then prove it by dancing with him at the festival. Back in the kitchen, Sekai turns to Makoto and asks if he'll dance with her. He replies with a shrug, asking if it really matters. Sekai, frustrated, raises her voice and says the dance will make it clear to everyone who he's really with. As she keeps pushing the point, Makoto finally sighs and gives in, agreeing to dance with her. Elsewhere, on a quiet patch of grass, Katsura and Taisuke sit together, both sighing about their pathetic love lives. Changing the subject, Katsura asks if Makoto and Kotonoha are even a couple anymore. Taisuke admits he's not sure from what he's seen. Makoto seems more attached to Sekai. Realizing that Taisuke has feelings for Kotonoha, Katsura encourages him to be a man and win her over. She lies and says girls like bold, assertive guys, the kind who don't ask but act. According to her, if he shows Kotonoha that alpha energy, she'll be all his in no time. Meanwhile, Katsura rushes off to confess her feelings to Makoto. She finds him and leads him to the rest area, where she finally admits she's liked him for years. Without waiting for a response, she pushes him onto the nearby bed. Outside, Katsura's minions continue mocking Kotonoha for being alone again. They tease that maybe she was just delusional this whole time, thinking she was in a relationship that never existed. Holding back tears, Kotonoha softly says Makoto must just be busy. For the first time, the girls notice the hurt in her eyes. For once, they don't respond with teasing. Instead, they awkwardly back off and leave her standing there alone. Meanwhile, Makoto is busy hooking up with Katsura. After they finish, he casually admits he doesn't really want to dance with her at the festival. Trying to play it cool, Katsura forces a smile and tells him to just sneak out quietly. But the moment he's gone, her fake confidence fades, and she's left sitting there hurt and alone. Elsewhere, Kotonoha, tired of being left behind, finally decides to go looking for Makoto. But instead of finding him, she runs into Taisuke. With zero hesitation, he tells her the truth. Makoto ditched her and went to dance with Sekai. Shocked, Kotonoha can't even react before Taisuke wraps his arms around her and blurts out that he's the one who truly loves her. After breaking away from Taisuke, Kotonoha pulls herself together just in time to witness Makoto and Sekai dancing under the festival lights. She watches, completely crushed, tears streaming down her face while the rest of the world enjoys the night, ignoring her heartbreak just like Makoto did. The next morning, Kotonoha boards the train as usual. But when she spots Makoto, she tries to walk right past him. Unexpectedly, he stops her and offers a weak apology. Somehow, that's enough for Kotonoha to smile again. She brushes it off and says everything's okay. Meanwhile, Taisuke is acting unusually upbeat, which surprises both Hikari and Sekai. When he runs into Makoto, he casually wishes him the best. After Taisuke leaves, Makoto jokingly asks Hikari if anything romantic happened between her and Taisuke. Offended, Hikari snaps back, saying absolutely nothing happened. When Makoto tries to compliment her to save himself, she isn't having it. She scolds him for being lazy and self-centered most of the time. Sekai joins in, saying that whenever her back is turned, Makoto is sneaking off somewhere or doing something shady. Elsewhere, Taisuke approaches Kotonoha again. Determined, he tells her that he's ready to be the kind of guy Makoto could never be. He even flashes 2 tickets to a luxury resort, hoping to impress her. But Kotonoha gently turns him down, saying she can't go with him because in her heart, she's still with Makoto. Confused, Taisuke tries to understand. Kotonoha firmly tells him to forget everything that happened between them the night before. It meant nothing. Still reeling, Taisuke decides to get answers directly from Makoto. He walks up and asks if Makoto is cheating on Sekai or on Kotonoha. For once, Makoto gives a straight answer. There's nothing going on between me and Kotonoha. That one sentence is enough to break Taisuke's spirit. Realizing Kotonoha had lied to him just to spare his feelings, he walks away quietly, now fully aware she simply didn't like him the way he hoped. Later, Katsura's minions corner Kotonoha yet again. They mock her brutally, saying Makoto clearly chose Sekai, and it's time she faced reality. But still clinging to hope, Kotonoha insists that she's still his girlfriend, refusing to believe what everyone else can clearly see. Katsura stays quiet while her crew continues mocking Kotonoha. They go as far as tripping her in the schoolyard, laughing as she stumbles. No one steps in to help. Meanwhile, Makoto is pulled aside once again by Setsuna, who questions him about whether he's still in contact with Kotonoha. Makoto casually says he hasn't messaged her since their breakup, but Setsuna doesn't seem convinced. She firmly tells him that he should focus only on Sekai now and nothing else. Makoto, feeling the pressure, asks if Setsuna has told Sekai about her move to France, which is happening the next day. Setsuna shakes her head and says she can't bring herself to tell Sekai, not until Makoto gives her one promise, that he'll take care of Sekai once she's gone. Makoto rubs the back of his neck, clearly overwhelmed. He admits that things are moving way too fast. He's only just started dating Sekai, and now he's being asked to be her emotional anchor for life. That's a lot for one guy, he says. Still, he reassures Setsuna that there's absolutely nothing going on between him and Kotonoha anymore. As if on cue, Kotonoha shows up carrying 2 heavy trash bags. Makoto immediately walks over to help her. Surprised by even that small kindness, Kotonoha smiles and invites him over. But this time, Makoto doesn't avoid the conversation. He tells her straight, they need to stop talking. He says he doesn't want anyone getting the wrong idea anymore. Hurt and confused, Kotonoha asks if Setsuna is behind this and nearly spills that Setsuna kissed him. Before she can say more, Setsuna shows up, grabs Makoto, and kisses him again right in front of Kotonoha. After pulling back, she coolly looks at Kotonoha and says, "Do you get it now?" Stunned, Kotonoha turns to Makoto, hoping for some kind of explanation, but he just stares back and says loudly, "I'm not into you anymore." With that, he walks away, leaving Kotonoha standing there alone once again, left to gather the broken pieces of her heart by herself. After school, Sekai tries to get in touch with Makoto but gets no response. That's when Nami shows up and pulls her aside. She warns Sekai to tread carefully. Makoto's got a bit of a reputation and isn't exactly known for being a one-girl guy. Meanwhile, Makoto's off somewhere else, shamelessly getting handsy with Katsura. She doesn't seem to mind one bit. In fact, she giggles and says she's just happy to be someone he sees as desirable, even if it means sneaking around behind Sekai's back. Makoto doesn't hesitate, he's all over her again. What they don't realize is that Setsuna is nearby and she hears everything. Later that evening, Setsuna shows up at Makoto's place. He's a little caught off guard and admits it's surprising to see her in his room like this. But Setsuna's not here to play games. She gets straight to the point and asks him what exactly he was doing in the janitor's closet earlier. Makoto rolls his eyes and says it's none of her business. But Setsuna won't let it go. She reminds him that she trusted him to treat Sekai right, and right now, he's doing the complete opposite. Makoto sighs, saying it's not that he dislikes Sekai, it's just messy and hard to deal with. Trying to change the subject, he leans into Setsuna and flirts, saying she must have feelings for him too, after all, she kissed him first. Before she can answer, he leans in and kisses her again, deep and passionate. When they finally pull apart, tears fill Setsuna's eyes. She quietly tells him, if he really wants her, he needs to end things with Katsura, and if he does that, she'll let him do whatever he wants. The next day, Nami casually asks Sekai if she's had any luck getting in touch with Makoto. When Sekai says she hasn't heard from him, not even with Setsuna trying to help, Nami raises an eyebrow and jokingly suggests that maybe Setsuna and Makoto are secretly off somewhere together. Sekai laughs it off, thinking it's just a silly joke. Right then, Kato walks in, and Nami introduces her to Sekai. After some awkward hellos, the classroom lights suddenly go out, and a projector screen lights up. A group of petty girls proudly explains that they've installed a hidden camera in the rest area, aka the hookup zone, so they could catch the school's so-called hoes in action. To everyone's horror, the first recording shows Nami caught in the act. Humiliated, she completely breaks down in tears. Sekai immediately rushes to comfort her. But before they can even process that, a new video starts playing, one showing Kato and Makoto getting way too familiar. Sekai is completely stunned. As winter rolls in, the academy turns colder literally and emotionally. Nami becomes a walking scandal, treated like a ghost after the entire school saw her performance. Sekai locks herself away in her room, while Makoto, being the mess he is, ends up cozying up with Hikari. Later, while getting dressed, Hikari confronts Makoto, telling him flat out that what they're doing to Sekai is seriously messed up. She nervously suggests they go check on Sekai the next day. Makoto shrugs her off like it's no big deal. Annoyed, Hikari grabs his phone and sees that he's still messaging a bunch of other girls. Shocked and disgusted, she calls him a pig, but instead of owning up, Makoto grabs her and kisses her like that's going to fix anything. Meanwhile, Kotonoha sits on the rooftop completely delusional, acting like she's still dating Makoto. Back in her room, Sekai replays their last conversation, where she confronted Makoto about Kato. He brushed it off, saying it was just fooling around. She cried, asking if she wasn't enough for him, and reminded him she had no one else but him now. Suddenly, her doorbell rings. It's Hikari, telling her to return to school before Makoto cheats again. Sekai slams the door in her face. Elsewhere, Kotonoha tries texting Makoto, but realizes she's been blocked. Kato deals with the same thing. Frustrated, she vents to her so-called friends, but instead of support, they mock her, saying if she loves taking guys so much, she should find a new one. Furious, Kato reminds them that they were the ones who told her to go for it. The girls just laugh and say she's been acting like a TikTok model. Kato runs off, humiliated, while the group gossips behind her back. Out of nowhere, one of the girls in Kato's crew blurts out a crazy theory, wondering if Makoto's juice has some kind of addictive drug in it because every girl he touches seems to lose her mind. She gives her friends a mischievous look and asks if they're just as curious as she is. Meanwhile, Makoto sneaks Hikari into the unused science lab. Looking around, she raises an eyebrow and asks what they'll do if someone catches them. Makoto, cool as ever, shrugs and says no one ever comes here except him, obviously. Once they finish whatever they were doing, Hikari, still catching her breath, brings up Sekai. She asks if he's seriously not going to check on her. Makoto says nothing, which frustrates Hikari. She snaps and says if he's got enough energy to mess around, he could at least check in on his actual girlfriend. She storms out, and as Makoto steps into a hallway, the minions stare at him like he's hiding some magical powers in his pants. Elsewhere, Kotonoha talks to herself like she's having a full-on chat with Makoto. She promises to make him a tasty lunch, and even says he can bring Sekai along if he wants. At the same time, Sekai scrolls through her old texts from Makoto, reading all the sweet nothings he once said. As Christmas rolls around, Makoto invites Kato's squad over to his place for a group project that clearly doesn't require books or clothes. While couples cuddle up for the holidays, Kotonoha, still blocked on his phone, calls him anyway and has an imaginary conversation. She even invites him on her family's yacht. Meanwhile, Sekai breaks down in tears, overwhelmed with sadness and memories. Suddenly, she rushes to the bathroom and throws up. She freezes. Then it hits her hard. Hand trembling over her stomach, she realizes what's happening. A few days later, she returns to school. Everyone is stunned to see her, but Sekai ignores the stares and walks straight up to Makoto. Calmly but firmly, she says they need to talk. When he asks what's going on, she drops the bomb. She's late, no periods for a while now. Makoto freezes. "You're joking, right?" he mutters. That's when Sekai completely loses it. She yells that she's never slept with anyone else but him, and he knows it. Still, he tries to dodge responsibility, but Sekai's had enough. She screams it loud enough for the whole school to hear she's pregnant, and it's his. The rumor spreads through the academy like wildfire. Sekai is taken to the infirmary to calm down. As she lies there, she gently smiles, thinking about the baby growing inside her. Out in the schoolyard, the minions whisper among themselves, half joking and half worried that they might end up teen moms too. Back in the lab, Hikari confronts Makoto and straight up asks if he used protection with Sekai. He admits he didn't. Disgusted, she says she doesn't want to be seen with him anymore and walks away, leaving him alone in the mess he made. Now the whole school's talking behind his back. Makoto's rep is in the gutter. He rushes home, completely blaming Sekai for ruining everything. While he's lying there sulking, his phone buzzes. It's Kato. His mood shifts immediately, and so does his body. When she shows up, Kato doesn't waste time. She asks him straight up, did he really do it? Is the baby his? Instead of taking responsibility, Makoto says Sekai brought this on herself. Disgusted, Kato calls him a slimy, disgusting cockroach and storms out, telling him to never contact her again. One by one, every girl in Makoto's messy love web cuts ties with him. When he desperately tries calling them, no one picks up. Frustrated and confused, he explodes, wondering why everyone suddenly turned their backs on him. Lost in rage, he storms off only to slip and fall hard on the snowy pavement. As he dusts himself off and pulls out his phone, he stumbles across old photos of Kotonoha. That's when the guilt finally hits him like a truck. Before he can fully process his regret, he lifts his eyes and sees Kotonoha standing right in front of him. Her face is blank, her eyes hollow like her soul's been crushed. Stunned, Makoto asks her why she looks so broken. Without blinking, Kotonoha tells him she's been waiting for him. As she starts mumbling about how she'll become the kind of girlfriend he'll never feel embarrassed by again, Makoto watches in shock. He tries to snap her out of it, but the way she talks sends him spiraling. Crushed by guilt, Makoto breaks down and asks why she would even still love someone like him. She doesn't answer at first, but then, without warning, he hugs her tightly. The moment he does, something flickers in her eyes again. She hugs him back, holding on like her life depends on it. Days pass, and the two start dating once more. One evening, while strolling together in the freezing night, Makoto starts shivering. With a gentle smile, Kotonoha grabs his hands and presses them against her chest to warm him up, offering comfort in her own strange way. Back at her apartment, Sekai stares at a picture Setsuna had snapped of her and Makoto together. Feeling a knot in her chest, she picks up the phone and calls him. When Makoto answers, she asks where he is, but he tries to dodge the question. This only pisses her off. She yells, saying she had cooked them a meal because she just wanted to eat with him like a normal couple. Makoto sighs and tells her he's busy, but Sekai isn't buying it. She immediately picks up on the lie and presses him harder. "Who are you with?" she demands. Makoto replies he's alone, but when she hears hesitation in his voice, she asks him point blank if he's cheating on her again. Makoto stumbles through his words, so Sekai reminds him that she's carrying his baby and it's about time he stepped up. After a long pause, Makoto finally says something that shatters her. He claims Kotonoha would never act like this. Horrified, Sekai realizes what that means and asks him straight up if he's with Kotonoha right now. Makoto doesn't say anything at first, then suddenly blows up. shouting that Sekai ruined everything, his reputation, his popularity, and now his whole life by getting pregnant. In the end, he coldly tells her to stop pretending to be his girlfriend and just leave. Completely heartbroken, Sekai quietly hangs up and heads to the train station. As she stands there, trying to pull herself together, she spots Makoto on a passing train, with Kotonoha cuddled up right next to him. A little while later, Kotonoha shows up at Makoto's place. He excuses himself to make some tea, only to walk into a messy kitchen. While cleaning up, he finds himself reminiscing about the time he genuinely enjoyed being with Sekai. But as his greed for more grew, he ended up ruining everything. Suddenly, the doorbell rings. When Makoto opens it, he sees Sekai standing there, and before he can even react, she slaps Kotonoha right across the face. After getting that off her chest, she spins toward Makoto and snaps, asking why that girl is in his house. Before he can explain, Sekai starts crying and pleads with Kotonoha to walk away. Makoto jumps in to defend Kotonoha, insisting that Sekai is getting everything twisted. But Sekai breaks down, accusing him of dumping her even though she's carrying his child. She then turns to Kotonoha, calling her out for stealing her boyfriend. But this time, Kotonoha doesn't back down. In a calm but cutting tone, Kotonoha confesses she was the one who seduced Makoto. Both Makoto and Sekai are stunned. As if that wasn't enough, Kotonoha doubles down and reveals that Setsuna also hooked up with Makoto. Sekai's jaw drops. She refuses to believe that her best friend would ever betray her. But Kotonoha doesn't flinch. She hits Sekai where it hurts, saying she's got too much heart, something Sekai clearly lacks. And to twist the knife even further, she closes her eyes, tilts her head toward Makoto, and lets him kiss her right in front of the girl carrying his baby. Completely broken, Sekai stumbles out of Makoto's house. On her way back, her mind replays a memory from their first year. She remembers telling Setsuna how she'd help her get close to Makoto after hearing he once stood up for her against bullies. But now, that same memory taunts her, reminding her of the time she acted like the helpful friend while secretly taking the one man Setsuna liked for herself. The next morning, Sekai wakes up to a message from Makoto. At first, she smiles until she reads it. He coldly tells her to get rid of the baby. The following day, Makoto receives a response. Sekai asks him to meet her. During lunch break, Makoto heads to the rooftop where he shares a quiet meal with Kotonoha. Feeling a bit guilty, he apologizes for how he's treated her and promises that she's the only girl he wants now. Later that evening, Sekai shows up at Makoto's place. While he's in his room calling Kotonoha, he gets a final message from Sekai: "I'm sorry, goodbye." He spins around only to see Sekai behind him, holding a knife. Without hesitation, she lashes out at him, screaming that he only ever cared about Kotonoha and her huge melons. By the time she realizes what she's done, Makoto is already gone. Panicked, she runs away. A few hours later, Kotonoha shows up and finds Makoto's lifeless body. Meanwhile, back at her home, Sekai gets a strange message from Makoto telling her to meet him on the rooftop. Curious and shaken, Sekai decides to go. But when she arrives, she finds Kotonoha waiting. Kotonoha immediately demands to know if Sekai went to the clinic to end the pregnancy. Sekai denies it, swearing she never did such a thing. But Kotonoha doesn't buy it. She accuses Sekai of faking the entire pregnancy just to get Makoto's attention. Sekai snaps and screams that she truly loved Makoto, just like Kotonoha did. But without emotion, Kotonoha tells her to check the bag beside her. When Sekai opens it and sees Makoto, she vomits in horror. But Kotonoha isn't done. Cold and calculated, she finishes Sekai, then cuts her open, wanting to find out the truth for herself. In the end, Kotonoha calmly concludes that Sekai was never pregnant in the first place. That's it for today's video, guys. What mind-blowing climax. Tell me, in the Makoto deserve that or not? Watch the following and I will see you in the next one.